He's better in Arizona, I think, health-wise, but his morale is really high and he's working really hard. And, everybody, I take it, it's not even like day by day, it's like hour by hour. And if there's like 1 hour I'm not thinking about brain cancer, it's a good hour. And I think he's talking a lot about his life with me and my life going forward. And I have this whole new understanding about what people go through. And I feel very sort of naive about how difficult it is. But we sort of collectively made the decision that if he doesn't work, then he would probably get sick faster because work feeds him and it's so much of a part of who he is. So I'm very supportive of him being in DC. He actually hasn't had treatment in 3 weeks because he had his second round of radiation because they found a second tumor, and then they take a break, and he actually has his MRI tomorrow, which if I'm on edge or extra emotional, it's just because the anxiety of that is nothing I would wish on anyone. It's horrible. He's more tired than he was. It hasn't affected his, he just did an amazing interview on our show on The View this morning. It hasn't affected anything with his thinking or talking, but he's more tired and his balance isn't as good, which I'm told is normal for radiation, and he trips a little more. But it's nothing, like, all things considered. I have a friend whose father had this, who died in 3 months very quickly, and I guess after his first surgery was an entirely different person. So I just consider myself lucky that he is doing as well as he is and that it's not as dire as it is in some circumstances. I still assumed he's gonna live forever, and it's weird because my grandmother's 105, as I just told you, and I'm weirdly angry at her for being 105 because I just assumed my dad would be 105 and that I would have a good, 30 years left with him. And it sounds so stupid, but it never occurred to me that he would get cancer, or a cancer like this, the odds are so, dire. So we're all mortal, as my fiance keeps telling me. But I need him, and I think America needs him, so the timing feels especially cruel. Even if I keep bartering with God almost every day, and I just want him to finish his term because he rightfully earned it, and I think America still needs him. It's probably high hopes, all things considered, but it never occurred to me that he would die until I was much older. Yeah, and it's not that I love politics, it's what I do. I mean, I'm a political commentator, is how I make my living, and I love it. And he taught me everything. Every single thing I know, he taught me, and I was always with him on his campaigns, and I was with him when I was 13 when he ran for president the first time, and they took me out of school and let me come with him to New Hampshire and Iowa, and I have these beautiful memories. And then I had graduated college and immediately joined his campaign, and his life in politics is so much a part of who I am. So I'm struggling with what my party looks like without him, just what daily life is gonna look like without him. And I'm more scared than I've ever been in my life, because personally, I talk to him like 10 times a day. I talk to him all the time. Before he got sick, I called him on the phone and was freaking out because my air conditioner broke and my manager of my building wasn't getting on it, and I was being a total princess about it. And he's a busy man, but he'll still pick up the phone and talk to me about my air conditioner being broken. And I talked to him about serious things, about I'm getting married soon, and if he's comfortable with the man I'm marrying. And I thought in more time I would get used to it, but it's almost getting worse. I take it as an honor, but we're so much alike, and it's weird because I think people automatically think like the sons would be a lot like him, but our personalities are very similar, and the way we deal with adversity is very similar, and we're both sort of very black and white and stubborn and don't emote all the time. And yeah, I mean, she calls me John McCain in a dress all the time. You know, there's so many people that I meet and have known that have famous parents, and they really struggle with it, and they don't really know how to like forge their own identity, and sometimes they're angry about it and they're very resentful. And I never had any of those feelings or experiences. Even at like a really young age, I think I recognized that my dad was really special and was more interesting than other dads and had more interesting stories to tell. And I think because we're so much alike, I always wanted to be around him. So I would, even like when I was little, if he had like a campaign event to go to or some town hall to go to, I would always want to go with him. I would always like just voluntarily want to go with him. And I don't know, I think for whatever reason, we're very, very, very much alike and very bonded. And it's not that my siblings aren't like him as well, but for whatever reason, we seem to be the most similar. I have half siblings that I'm not as close to, but my brother Jack and Jimmy and my little sister Bridget, who I was raised in the same home as, we are close. And my brother Jimmy especially has been amazing through all of this. And I'm so grateful I have so many siblings because it's easier to like have someone to call and talk to. And I'm very close with my parents, and I realize how special that is the older I get. And there are a lot of people that don't have that. And it's really nice. You know, it's nice to know that there's not any regrets about my relationship with either of my parents. The time he spent with us was so special. We would go up to Sedona on the weekends, and he would grill for us and take us hiking and cook hot dogs across the creek and sing to us and play. And I know that people think it's sort of an unorthodox way to grow up, having your parents divided, but they made such an attempt to make sure that we had like family time and traveled together that it just is, when it's your normal, you don't think of anything different. And I didn't feel that way. I mean, you can ask my siblings if they felt differently, but I feel this moment in my life, I'm so grateful for all the things I had and just all the love that was surrounding me. And I'm so grateful my parents didn't raise me in Washington, D.C., because I think I'd probably be spoiled and kind of entitled. And I know people who are raised in D.C. whose parents are politicians, and they don't have the same perspective I think I do. Yeah, I try and watch him on everything as much as I can. And even on Sundays when he's on like morning shows, I'll get up early to watch him. And I give him feedback a lot. He gives me feedback on mine. And it's been like that forever, like for a long time. I even remember when I was really young, like going with him to Jay Leno and, you know, going with him to so many news shows. I remember meeting Tim Russert, things that just you don't realize when you're little how important they are when you're older. And I mean, he's such a good interview. Even today on The View, he's just such a good interview. There's so many boring politicians and boring actors and people that just have nothing to say, and he has everything to say, and it's a gift. And I know that sometimes people will say that like the media was too obsessed with him, but look at how good he is at talking to people and talking about the world, and at least making me feel more calm. It's since his surgery, it's like there's no filter at all about anything. Whatever tiny veneer he had before is like completely gone in every way right now. And I think I'm very similar. I mean, it's a great gift to have where you don't really care what people think of you and care about what you have to say, and you just want to do what's right. And I think I'm similar in that way. But I love that about him. I love that you always know where he stands, and even if you disagree with him, he's still an honest person and a genuine person. And in this world, that's really hard to find, and I think in politics it's almost impossible. And some of the people you're interviewing, like Joe Lieberman and Joe Biden, I just have this fear that it's a time gone by, that there's not going to be politicians like that anymore, and that my generation is just going to be like bankrupt with bullshit, and it's going to be horrible. And I think of all the experiences I had in watching my dad's speeches and him talking about giving to causes greater than yourself. And he loves America. I mean, I think America is like the great love of his life. He loves this country so much. And, you know, now we're having conversations about whether or not it's okay to salute the flag. And it just, I'm very nostalgic right now, and I'm very sort of reflective on everything I had. And I just want to do my best to continue what he's doing, even in a small way. That whole thing is one of the worst experiences of my life, easily, because I was here in New York, and I had flown back. I went to Arizona when he had his initial surgery, and they told me that it was just a blood clot and that it was fine. And my parents said, go back to New York, you have to go back to work, because I was working on a show on Fox at the time. And I felt really weird about it. I remember feeling like something's really wrong, but I'm probably being paranoid, and like I'm just being neurotic. And I got on a plane, I came back, and then I had a really hard time sleeping. I remember I took an Ambien, which I hardly ever do. And the next morning, my mom told me, she texted me, it's glioblastoma, and I Googled it, and I saw that the survival rate's like 14%, that you have on average 18 months to live. I'm sorry. And I freaked out. And I called my dad's doctors. It's a weird thing with celebrity, because I still don't think his doctors were as candid with us as they should have been. We're a family of like total straight shooters. It's easy for me if I have the truth. And I'm sorry, I've been emotional all day. It's my birthday. And so I found out it was really bad. I called my best friend from Arizona, from Phoenix, when I was younger, and her fiance is a cancer researcher. And he said, get on a plane now. He said, I'm not gonna, and I still appreciate that about him. And he said, it's really, really bad. And I was gonna wait an extra like 24 hours because A, I was like going crazy, and B, my fiance was coming from DC, and his father works in the Trump administration and was being sworn in. And so my fiance had to go to that, and he came and saw me when he was done, and we flew back to Phoenix together, and I was just, I couldn't shower, I couldn't put my clothes on. It has totally changed the way I look at healthcare in the country. It's changed the way I look at mortality, and it's this great shock. And so I went home, back to your original question, I went back home with him, and I went to Mayo Clinic, and I was furious. And I was furious at his staff, I was furious at my mom, and I was really mad at his doctors. And I was like, you let me go back to New York. Oh, and I thought that I was gonna go host my show, by the way, which is delusional, like the next day after I found out, which is crazy. And then in the morning, obviously, I texted my producer saying I couldn't go. So I went there, and we had this whole meeting with his doctors, and Rick Davis, and my mom, and I don't even remember who else was in the room, and my fiance was there, and I was like a dragon lady to everybody. I was like, you didn't tell me the truth, you didn't tell him the truth, like, what is going on? I need you to give it to me straight. And the doctor came in, and they showed us this graph saying that the chances of him living past a year were very slim, and just like really macabre and morose. And he said, I have to go back for the defense bill and for the healthcare bill. And I was like, now I'm an expert in brain stuff, by the way, and at the time I was not. And I said, what is what could possibly happen if he gets on a plane? And the doctor said that he could like hemorrhage, and it can be dangerous if he still has air in his brain, and all this crazy stuff. So I freaked out, and I screamed at everyone that he couldn't get on the plane, and that I didn't agree with it, and that they're putting his health in jeopardy. So I'm his daughter. And my dad snapped at me and said, it's my life and it's my choice. And so I said, we're flying private then. So I'm not dealing with the airport. So they got one of his friends' planes, and we flew back the next day, and it was just, I was like a zombie. It was horrible. We got on the plane, and the whole time I was like, is his head gonna explode? Is he gonna die on the plane? Like, what's gonna happen? And we land in D.C., and there's people waiting, like photographers at the airport, and we get in, and it was just, everyone was, TSA people were staring at him like he was a dead man walking, and everyone was looking at us like they know. And then we go to his office, and I watched him make the speech, the speech about coming together when he had the scar on his eyebrow, and just started crying in his office. And there was cupcakes on the table, and at that point in time, all I did on the plane was like research cancer stuff, and I screamed. I was like, get these fucking cupcakes out of here. Sugar feeds cancer. Get these cupcakes out of here. And I like, it's irrational, but someone had given the interns cupcakes, and I was like, if I ever see any cupcakes in here again. And they were all scared of me, and now I know that like he can have some sugar. It's not the end of the world. And I didn't stay, and he did the healthcare vote that night. And I didn't stay, and I went back to my house in D.C., and my fiance woke me up to tell me his vote, and I just started crying, and I think it's very brave. And I got my computer, and I looked on Twitter, and everybody was exploding, and I'm still so proud of him. I mean, the guts it takes to make a move like that, knowing the ramifications, and I'm glad he did it ultimately, because obviously I agree with him, but I never want to fly in a plane again where I think my dad's brain's going to explode, and I'm yelling at his doctors, and I'm like yelling at everyone. And I will say, my fiance was not my fiance when we flew to Mayo Clinic and to Arizona, and by the time we left, he was, because we had a come to Jesus conversation about our life together. And it's not terribly a romantic way to get engaged, but that's how it happened. A month. It's like 2 days before Thanksgiving, the 21st. It's weird. I didn't want to get married, and I didn't care about it, but brain cancer will change the way you look at things. And my dad really likes him a lot, and they get along really well, which is nice. And he's very conservative, which is nice too. Yeah, it's weird. Clay Aiken is a very good friend of mine, if you know him from American Idol. And my dad's favorite band is ABBA. So we're trying to figure out the right ABBA song that Clay can do with his voice. So that's what we're doing right now, but we may have to switch it, because I guess ABBA is very hard to sing. So Dad's a terrible dancer, and I'm a terrible dancer, so it probably will be awkward for you to watch. You know, it feels like the things that we believe in failed in a weird way. I was so idealistic about America, and I still am. I mean, I don't not believe in America, but working together, finding common ground, bipartisanship, that is not what Americans want to hear right now. And what's taken over, especially in the Republican Party, is something that's much darker, and it's obviously a populist phenomenon. And I don't judge people for believing it and for needing something to believe in, but I don't like that my brand of conservatism has sort of become this like dirty word, or this, you know, this bastardization of what people think should be in Washington, D.C. And I take such offense at the idea that people who have sacrificed so much for their country and sacrificed so much in government are somehow not good enough for people like Steve Bannon and President Trump. I logically, just because it's my job, I understand Trump supporters. I understand why they love him, but I don't feel it, and I never have. And during the election, I remember being like, what am I missing? What am I not feeling? What am I not getting? And he will never resonate with me in the way that other leaders have. He was never beloved by the party. It's not like I was under the impression that he was ever this like sort of conservative darling. There were a lot of Republicans that sort of like held their nose voting for him in '08 and didn't think he was conservative enough, and you know, didn't sort of trust him in the way that they trust like a Ted Cruz. But there's also this other side where independents and young people and all these demographics that Republicans traditionally can't win over, my father does and polls very well with. And it's strange for me because if what I believe in really was extinct, why am I still here? Why am I still have a platform on television? There are a lot of people like me out there, but I don't like the anger towards those of us who couldn't get on board. I was a never Trumper, which is like the dirtiest of dirty words in conservative circles, and it's used again, or it's attempted to be used against you in a lot of ways. And I just think it's okay to think different things about a president who's not a traditional conservative, who is giving money to, to Democrats for the majority of his life. And the rhetoric and the tone and the stuff with POWs and the stuff with, like today, with the widow of David Johnson, who was killed in Niger, I just don't get it. Why are we spending our time tweeting about widows? And it's just, I hate being judged for the fact that I can't get behind it. So I was living in Los Angeles at the time, working on another show that didn't work out. And I was on West Coast time, so it was different. I woke up and my show had been canceled and I was like technically unemployed at the moment, so I slept in later. And I woke up and my phone like exploded. It was like ding, 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 ding. And then I turned on the TV and I just saw John McCain on the crawl. And then I called my mom and I thought he had like died or been shot or something insane because it was just all over everywhere. And then I found out what President Trump had said, and I was so shocked and just confused because who says something like that? What a strange thing to say. You don't like people who were captured. My father gave 5.5 years of his life and can't bend his knee because he was tortured in prison, and you can't respect that? It's still bizarre to me. It's still, I still don't understand it. I don't understand why people were more okay with it. There's a trend right now in like sort of conservative media to call my dad a traitor and to call him Songbird, and it gets tweeted to me all the time, and it's like in the Breitbart-esque circles, and the disrespect we have for veterans, especially POWs, it's a dark place for America to be in. And at the time, I was just confused. I thought it was the end of Trump's ambitions, and clearly I was quite wrong. And I don't know, somebody brings it up to me every day, though. I can't go anywhere without someone bringing it up to me. Trump came to Arizona and did a rally, and he didn't say anything about my father at the rally, and he didn't say, like, thoughts and prayers with you. He didn't say anything that you would normally think to say in the home state of a senior senator who's battling brain cancer. And some of his supporters were chanting, "Die McCain," outside the arena, and it was reported. And I tweeted back, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but something along the lines of like, what more must my family be put through? These people are monsters. Because again, I just think, would I ever behave in such a fashion? I think Bashar al-Assad could come someplace and I still probably would be like, he's gonna rot in hell, I don't need to do anything. And I don't understand this visceral anger and hate towards my father. Even if you disagree with his politics, I don't get it. I don't feel that way. There's no one I feel that way about in the world that I would scream, die now, die whomever. And it's just, it makes this harder. I think that's the thing these people don't realize when they're tweeting, and I get it all day long, everywhere, as you can imagine. And it makes this harder. It makes it harder to be worried about who's going to be the person who hates my family so much that they want my father to die right now. Especially when I was home in Arizona, because it happened in Arizona, I got really paranoid and really sort of very anxious going out. I just basically lived at our apartment and at a ranch in Sedona. And I don't think people realize that I hear it, I see it, but I do believe in karma. And I think if you're saying things like that, you probably have a lot of dark stuff going on inside you. And, that's your issue to figure out. But it is a new trend. It is not, I think it's something that's very unique to 2017. I don't think it's something that would have been socially accepted even 2 years ago. There's weird conspiracy theories on the internet about a lot of things, but for whatever reason, there is one that has come up that, and I don't completely understand the logic behind it, but that songbird meaning he ratted out someone in prison, which is obviously anyone who even has like a cursory understanding of my dad's story knows that it's the exact opposite, that when he was asked if he wanted to leave, he said, no, I can't leave anyone behind. And it's so hurtful. And you're talking about someone's military service, and I don't know where it started, but you should take a look at my social media and what people send, and pictures of my dad's head on a bird and all this crazy. I thought my dad's presidential race was the worst of it. That is nothing compared to the past 2 years. It's not even like on a Richter scale, my dad running for president was like a 6, and this is a 12. It's so much more difficult. It's so much harder. It's so much angrier. And people, I think, were like, even if I disagree with him, I'm not going to attack his military record. That is not what happens anymore. I think he can give himself a break. He's sort of become obsessed with the Confederate flag story in 2000 when he didn't call for it being taken down, which is obviously something he said was a mistake and he regrets. But he brought it up today on The View, and he keeps bringing it up. And, you know, he's done so many incredible, we're all fallible, we're all human. And I do think sometimes he's much too hard on himself. I mean, I'm completely biased because I'm his daughter, but he's one of the great Americans. Like, generations and generations will read about him and know his story and know how amazing he was. And we are imperfect as humans. And I do think sometimes that he can. I remember when you were interviewing him in Sedona being like, he did a lot of good things too. And he did a lot of brave things. And that's why HBO is making a documentary about you. And maybe the Confederate flag thing we can spend like 10 minutes on instead of a half hour. Well, his grandfather and great-grandfather and every generation of McCain men back to the Revolution fought in a war and lived by a strict code of conduct and ethics and morals. And I think he still adheres to that, which is incredible, given that we seem to live in a time that really is lacking in morals and ethics. And I do wish he would be easier on himself. I mean, there's so many... I don't need to like tell you why he's an incredible man, but I wish he would just give himself a break, especially at this juncture in his life where he can't go anywhere without people getting emotional and hugging him and saying incredible things. And people really it's almost nice that people are as petrified of him dying as I am, in a very macabre way, that people seem to really understand his value in American history and American politics. But he is very, very hard on himself. I mean, and he's been asking me, like, we are so tightly bonded. We are very close. I talk to him 7 to 10 times a day. And he's been recently asking me if he was a good father. And it's like, he could not have been a better father to me. There's nothing I would change about my life or my childhood at all. And it's strange for him to sort of be, I guess maybe it's what happens when you're facing mortality, but I wish he would celebrate and, chill out a little bit. I love him so much, but the thing is, I said it before he got sick. I don't have any regrets about anything. I mean, that's the one silver lining of everything, is that I was with him on all his campaigns. I've done so many things with him. I always made the effort when I was younger, even when I was a teenager, to like spend time with him and be around him, because I always thought he was so interesting. And I'm sure it's a daughter-father thing too. And there's nothing left unsaid between us at all, which is the luxury of having this kind of cancer as well. I mean, I keep trying to see the silver lining of it. I mean, he didn't just get hit by a truck out in the middle of nowhere, but I do wish he would just, sort of accept some things instead of harping on it. I was really young. I was a freshman in high school. I was 13, 14, and I just remember that all of a sudden he was super famous, that he was being parodied on SNL. Everyone was talking about him, that he seemed cool in a way that I didn't really care about before. And they took us out of school at different junctures to go on the road with him. And I just remember going to town halls in New Hampshire, so many of them freezing. I remember people really responding to him, and his town halls were huge. They were so much bigger than anything he had done in Phoenix before. And I even at that age, I sort of had an understanding of the cultural phenomenon that he was becoming. And I remember when he won New Hampshire, and I remember just that hotel going crazy, just people everywhere crying and screaming on this elation because he whooped George Bush's ass. I mean, he won by 13 points, 13 or 16, I don't remember. And it was obviously unexpected. And I remember thinking that it was something very special and thinking that he was going up against something that I knew. At that time, everyone knows who Bushes were, and that he was just more interesting. And I remember the Daily Show interviewing him and his staff. So many people that worked on his 2000 campaign are still work for him and are still family to me. Rick Davis being the number one on that list, who, by the way, was one of the people at Mayo Clinic in the hospital that I was screaming at the time, and someone who's been at every hospital meeting. And that's also rare. There's so many politicians who their staff, they just treat like staff. And so many people, Joe Donahue's worked for my dad for 30-something years. There's a very low turnover rate. People really stay and are proud to work for him, and I think it says a lot about the kind of man he is. But I love 2000, and it's such a special, beautiful time in my life. And it's weird because as an adult working in media, like Jake Tapper I knew when he was still working for Salon, and I was, a child. And, someone sent pictures of us recently, and it's like John Dickerson, who hosts Face the Nation, looking like a teenager, and all these journalists who went on to be so famous and so iconic, Tucker Carlson, who were very green at the time. And it's funny because there's some journalists that I know that take it a little easy on me because they knew me when I was little. And I'm sure it's probably a little weird. Yeah, I love the Straight Talk Express. The seats from it are at our ranch in Sedona, at our house. And yeah, it was just such happy times. I mean, such a different time in American history. And we'd travel all over the state. I still love New Hampshire. I mean, it's such an amazing state filled with people who really take their right to vote seriously. But I have beautiful memories. He didn't get dirty, and he didn't, you're probably referring to South Carolina when things got dark. But yeah, he's always run clean campaigns, though. It's a great part about him, all of his campaigns. There's nothing that I would look on that I would be embarrassed about or feel like maybe that was a little dark or a little dirty. He doesn't do that. Obviously, like I said, everyone was so excited and surprised, and there was like an electricity to his campaign in 2000. And then I just remember it getting really dark really fast and really understanding what happened, that there had been a smear campaign against my sister Bridget, who was adopted, that she was my father's illegitimate black child. Yeah, that's the I forgot. That's the flyers and phone calls I believe Karl Rove sent out to everyone. And I just remember feeling confused. It's like the last time I was truly innocent in politics was before that happened. And that sort of took away my innocence in a lot of ways. And I think people like Karl Rove need to take more responsibility for the climate we're living in now. Because my father's campaigns never did anything like that. Nothing. There's nothing like that he has ever done. But the Bushes did. And I do wonder if they feel anything about what our world looks like right now. Because you did do smear campaigns where you were accusing my father of having an illegitimate black child. And by the way, my sister Bridget she Googled herself and had a whole emotional reaction as you could imagine when she figured out it was about her. And these things have like real life ramifications. I think politicians and staffers sometimes forget. And I know he conceded soon after in California. I remember because Maria Shriver tried to ask him in an interview when he was walking, and he said something like, "Back off, please," or "Get out of the way, please," and it was interpreted as being really aggressive. And then I remember going on stage with him, and women like in the front row wearing like the American bandstand hats and waving his signs and hysterically like tears coming down their face, hysterically crying. And I remember thinking, like, that obviously he had made such an impact if these people were this emotional. He handles failure pretty well. And we went back to Sedona. I remember, he was such a media darling after that, that people really loved him, and he got so much more. That's when he really became John McCain, like on the national scale. And I remember it was very tense with the Bushes for a long time. And I remember that he was a thorn in the Bush's side in the same way that he was a thorn in Obama's side, in the same way that he's a thorn in Trump's side. And I don't know if he has. I'm friends with a woman named Kennedy who works at Fox News, who was an MTV correspondent at the time, and she told me that she'll never experience anything again in politics like that it was such a singular moment, and that it was so, I don't want to completely speak for her, but beautiful and interesting and such a different time in politics because she covered it at the time working for MTV. And so many people have that to say to me. John Dickerson writes about it in his book, and there are so many journalists that have the same kind of fond memories that I have. And I just don't know what journalist is going to write anything about any of these campaigns and primaries in modern times where they're like, that was a beautiful experience that shaped the way I look at politics, and I'm happy I was around. It just doesn't happen anymore. No, I think '08 was the end. I think President Obama and my father, all things considered, ran very respectable campaigns that were, all things considered, as candidates competing against each other, was very respectful. There was none of the birther stuff coming out of my dad's mouth, none of the, all the things that we already know. I'm so proud of his campaigns. I graduated from college at Columbia, and then I joined his campaign right when it was imploding. And I like joined his campaign because I wanted to help him, but I also didn't want to get a job, so it wasn't completely altruistic. And John Weaver had been running his campaign, who had helped run his campaign in 2000, and basically like stole a bunch of money and ran it into the ground. And everyone thought that he, or allegedly stole a bunch of money. I don't know if that's, just Google it. I don't know. It was bad. And he was fired, and then Rick Davis took over. And everyone, I remember reading, Jonathan Alter wrote a Newsweek article that was like, the end of McCain, like it's over, like he's not going to be president. And me thinking, oh my God, I guess he's not going to get anywhere. And going with him to Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina and seeing the same sort of magic and reaction to town halls that I had seen in 2000, and he works his ass off. The schedules were insane. It was like 12 town halls a day, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning and ending at 10 o'clock at night, and he worked like an animal to make his way back and ultimately become the nominee. And there was a turning point I remember when he was speaking in one of the debates where he said something about how he didn't go to Woodstock because he was all tied up, and that it was a joke that landed really well, and that sort of like differentiated him from the rest of the candidates on the stage. That was also a turning point. And I don't know what else I was going to say. I was completely left out of all of it because I had a big mouth and I was young and naive and sort of rebellious at the time. And I don't think I would have told anyone, but I understand why they didn't trust me with the vetting. And I didn't find out that Sarah was the pick until the morning. And I remember turning on CNN and seeing a headline that there was a plane that was coming from Alaska to Ohio, and the governor was on board, and they were saying her name wrong. They were saying Palin instead of Palin. And listen, Joe Lieberman and his wife Hadassah are family to me. I love them dearly. They are truly good and decent people in a cesspool of politics filled with bad people. And could he have won with him? I don't like to play this game because I think that Obama was such a phenomenon that my dad could have potentially had Jesus Christ as his running mate and it wouldn't have made a difference. But I love Joe Lieberman, and I have such fondness and affection for him. And, you know, Joe Lieberman's at our ranch hanging out while my dad has brain cancer, and I haven't talked to Sarah since election night. Well, I think that she, the first thing I want to say is that when I first met her, she was breastfeeding her baby at the time. Trig is his name. And I remember thinking I'd never seen a woman breastfeed, a politician breastfeed before. That she was like entirely different. She was young and obviously beautiful. And in her speech that she made when my dad introduced her as his running mate, I thought she like nailed it. I thought it was amazing. Pretty soon after, more women started coming to my dad's rallies. She became the phenomenon that she turned into. And I think people don't like talking about her because they're such different politicians and that their legacies are so different. But I don't have ill feelings towards her. I don't have anger towards her. I think she chose a very, very different and ill-advised path after she was my father's running mate. But people shouldn't be scared to talk about Sarah. I sort of get it, but I also think that I understand the choice, and it was a gamble, and my dad is a gambler, and he always rolls the dice, and I think they understood that they had to fight change with change, and that adding a woman onto the ticket would maybe, and a very conservative woman that would help him win over the base of the conservative, or the base of the Republican Party that has so many issues with him. There was a period of time when I think people thought that she was a bigger phenomenon than him, and maybe she was. I mean, she was so famous and so polarizing and so I don't know the right word. She invokes this visceral reaction from people, and I don't think all of it's fair. I think she got a lot of crap she wouldn't have gotten if she were a Democrat, and she was always very nice to me. I mean, that's the one thing I'd say. She's always very nice to me, always very warm. Her Bristol's boyfriend was not at the time, but yeah, I didn't think all of it was fair. I think after the election, anything's debatable, but I think during the election, I didn't think it was all fair. They just played it on The View today. It's something, people bring that up to me all the time. All the time. People tweet me links to the video all the time. And I think it's just this moment. Again, I think it's like that's the end. That was it. After that, it didn't. People don't want that anymore. They don't want respect. They don't want difference of ideology. They want red meat, and they want anger, and they want to feel their anger validated. And it won. Trump's president. My dad's not. But if we had to do it that way, no. It's not worth it. There are just as many people that hate him and think he's the Antichrist. There's two sides to that coin. I worked for Fox for a long time, and I'm well aware of the opposite. And he's polarizing as well, and he invokes intense reactions. And I think when you go through the experiences he's gone through, like in prison, gut and integrity and saying what you mean and meaning what you say becomes so much more important. His military background shapes who he is in every facets of life. I mean, he was, when I get upset about his cancer, he's always saying in Latin, "Don't let the bastards get you down," and "Don't give up the ship," and Navy sayings, and he sort of uses military terminology to help deal with adversity. So I think it shapes every single part of him. I do think him being captured changed his outlook on the world in general. I like him in at the Naval Academy, though. People sort of talk about it like he was just so out of control and crazy. There's a picture I have to get for you of him in college where he's in a Corvette smoking a cigar, and he just looks like, rebel without a cause. And I like that he wasn't always running for president. I mean, that's like a lot of politicians' problems. They want to be president since they were 16, and he didn't plan on becoming the person, the icon that he is in politics today. And I like that I like that he has always lived. He always does everything in an intense way. And he was talking to me about when he was in Pensacola with his good friends, and they would like get drunk and sing in bars, and you would hit on women, and just, I don't know. I don't think that's such a bad way to enjoy the early part of your life. I know some people think that it's like unorthodox, but I don't know. I like that he actually experienced things. He wasn't always trying to be perfect. He likes old movies. But he also references the Knights of the Round Table and Camelot a lot too, and reading that book when he was, I think, 10 or 11. So I think anything that's about sort of like camaraderie and being a macho man probably inspired him. But he does really like movies. He likes old movies. Viva Zapata. I still haven't seen it. I should see it. It's his favorite movie. He references it a lot, and I still haven't seen it. But yeah, I should watch it. He didn't really do it that often. We talked about it at Christmas time. I remember, like, for some reason on Christmas, like Eve, and when we were having dinner, he would talk about it. But he doesn't like to obsess and sort of like think about the past in that way. I remember seeing that there's kind of a cheesy A&E movie made about his life, and it came out when I was in college. I was like a freshman or sophomore in college, and I remember going to the premiere with him and watching it, and like it sounds very naive, but like not realizing how badly tortured he was, and not realizing like the intensity of it all. And it took an A&E movie to understand, but I think he knows that it upsets me. Thinking about him in pain upsets me. And I've had to learn the stories of his time in prison, the intense parts of it, from his book, from his movies, from friends, and from, the Nightingale song, books and people writing about it more than him talking to me about it. Yeah, he doesn't like, I don't know if he thinks that he's like sort of trying to get sympathy from people, which is absurd, obviously, but he doesn't like talking about it. Yeah, he doesn't that often. Yeah, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And he was tortured so badly. And he was like hung up by his shoulders and beaten. Anyone would. The point of torture is that you break, which is why I'm so against it. At a certain point, everyone breaks, but it's that part of him that obsesses over the things he thinks he did wrong. And it's not my favorite quality of his. I will say that. Like, there are moments where I'm like, we don't need to rehash the one bad thing in your life you've done. And, just even withstanding what he did for as long as he did is so admirable and noble in its own right, that the part of it, which is, as you said, his fellow prisoner said would have eventually happened anyway. I don't know. I don't know why, other than maybe it's his way of dealing with it. He can't bend his knee, so dancing and riding a bike. Dancing's weird, and he can't ride a bike. When he takes his shirt off or puts his t-shirt on, he has to do it with one hand because he can't lift his arms over his shoulders. He can't really comb his hair. He can only do the front part. When he puts sunscreen on, it's kind of like slapping instead of the way you and I would do it like this. It's so weird. When you're a kid, it's just I didn't really think about it. I just thought that when he walks downstairs, he kind of bounces with one leg because he can't bend his knee, and you just don't think about it when you're a kid. And I didn't really realize the extent of his injuries till I was much older. And it's still I don't know, it's just who he is. It's how he is. And there's no injury that he has that he couldn't live a normal life and do everything he wanted, which is more than you can say for a lot of people. But it's noticeable if you're around him enough. Sort of like barks at his staff or my mom to help him. And it's little, like I said, it's like his hair or sunscreen or something like that. And it's not bad. It's just little things. I think the bike riding, I just remember when I was little, he couldn't ride bikes with me, and me being like, oh, okay, he can't ride a bike. Not as religious as some. I mean, we went to church, and my father has a deep faith in God, but he was only home on the weekends. So my parents took us to church some, but not a crazy amount. But we do pray, and we do pray before dinner. But I like that it wasn't as shoved down my throat as it possibly could have been. I like that my parents sort of gave us religion and presented us with values, but didn't say, only believe this or you're going straight to hell. But he does have a deep faith in God, and he's been talking about God a lot more to me in the past 4 months than I can remember in the past. I have become obsessed, which I don't know why, obsessed with when I die, making sure that when whatever I do here, that he's there waiting for me. And I can't stop thinking about it, and I can't stop talking about it, and I can't stop asking people if they think when we die, if our parents are going to meet us on the other side. And I asked him, I'm sorry, and he said, I'm always going to be with you, and I'll be there waiting for you. And I just want to make sure that my life has the same value his does, so I can see him when I die. And I don't know if that's the case. I'm struggling with my faith in a way that I have never before. But I really hope that that's all I want, is when I die that he's waiting for me. And I really hope that's the case. I really sincerely hope that there's an afterlife and he's there. And I hope that he so deserves to go to heaven for so many different reasons. And he keeps telling me that I'm going to be looking up or looking down. I was like, stop saying looking up. Ridiculous. But it's weird because you just don't think about your parents dying. And you really don't think about your parents dying when it's John McCain. And I'm scared of it every day. And I know that I feel like sort of not spoiled, but there are people that really deal with this, and like people who have parents who have terminal illnesses that they have to deal with for years and years and years, that don't have health care, that don't have the privileges we do, that don't have the money we do. Like, I feel weird being so sad about it. But then on the flip side, I'm like, my father, who was this giant presence in my life, I'm trying to figure out ways to train myself to live without him. And it's fucking impossible. I'm even tiny things I'm having a hard time fathoming doing. Tiny things like when I go to DC, I'm not going to get off on the train station and maybe stop at his apartment before I go to my place. Like, things that are just so small. I made him teach my fiance how to make my favorite ribs of his because I don't ever want to live without them. And my fiance made them, and they sucked, and they were not the same at all. So it's stuff like that, but he's talking about death a lot more. He's talking about God a lot more. It sucks. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I mean, knowing you're gonna, I keep trying to decide what I would want. Would I want to know I'm gonna die, or would I not? And I'm kind of edging towards not, because thinking about it every day, I can't imagine if you're him, but I just know what I'm going through. I mean, every day since this happened, I cry one moment or another. Sometimes it's small and it's stupid. Sometimes it's big. I'm obsessed with glioblastoma. I'm obsessed with it. I go on glioblastoma support blogs almost every night. It's not healthy. I'm trying to break the habit. I'm trying to do whatever I can. I probably call his doctors too much. It's my birthday today. I wrote a big check to the brain tumor organization last night because it made me feel better, because it's all about me. But I'm reading so much, I'm consuming so much information. To anyone whose parent or loved one has glioblastoma, they are heroes. I don't know how you do it. Please tweet me and call me and teach me your ways, because I don't know how anybody does this. And I don't mean to sound selfish, because I know I'm luckier than the majority of people, but it's ripping me apart. I don't remember seeing him sick. I remember seeing him healthy, but I don't really. My dad remembers him. It plagues him too, because his really good friend died of the same thing. Our dog, my dad's dog, they gave it to him for his birthday, 70th birthday, I think, and that dog is obsessed with him and doesn't like anybody else. That dog's kind of an asshole to everybody else and loves my dad. Just follows him around and barks at everybody else, but he loves that dog. He grills and hikes and watches football and gambles. That's what he really loves to do. Somebody took a picture of him gambling and like tried to shame him for playing craps or poker. I don't remember. And ever since then, he's like very weird about gambling. And I want us to like go to Vegas and blow as much money as he wants and gamble because he really enjoys it. But we haven't done that yet. It's so weird. He's like obsessed with birds, and I think one of his like great feelings of accomplishment is that our ranch is a bird sanctuary, and he just, I don't know. I don't get it. I personally don't love watching birds as much as he does, but if the hawks or the owls are around, it's like that's the biggest thing that's ever happened, and we all have to stop and watch and wait and take 30,000 pictures. And I will say, when I was there and spent time in Arizona for 3 months when he was getting treatment, I got a little into the birds too. I will say I took a bunch of videos. There's a baby hawk that isn't scared of people that I would take videos of and pictures of, and I kind of get it, but I'm not as obsessed as he is. There's a lot of pressure, but then there's also not, because my parents never forced us to do anything. I feel like it just means being patriotic and trying to love your country and do something to make the world a better place. I don't know if co-hosting The View is necessarily making the world a better place, but I know that having a platform to show different sides of conservatism is important to me. And I don't know, it probably means something different to my brothers than it does to me, because the military service wasn't expected of me in the same way that it was my brothers. They were expected to, well, my brother Jack was definitely, it was like he was going to the Naval Academy. There wasn't a discussion about if he wasn't. And I'm sure that has amount of pressure for him. And my brother Jimmy enlisted in the Marines when he was 17, I believe, and my parents had to sign a waiver because he was so young, he was underage. And you know, military service is so intense in my family that I think if you're a man in the McCain family, it probably, I'm sure they felt pressure to join and serve. I think my brother Jimmy certainly was when he went to Iraq. I mean, we talked about it many times. I mean, I think that's such a personal sort of experience you'd probably have to ask them, but my grandfather didn't die in battle, but he had a heart attack when the war was over and like immediately died when it was over. And that's a version of being killed in war or having I'm sure the stress had an impact on him. It's not the same as obviously being shot or whatever, a bomb exploding, but there's a great toll that's taken on the men in my family, and I think on my father too. I wonder if anything of the stress, and because my grandma's 105, so I do wonder sometimes if like the stress of his military career or his political career has anything to do with him getting cancer. But I also think that's sort of ridiculous, and we don't know why people get cancer. When he decided to run again, I remember being like, you're 80. Is there really so much going on that you feel like you need to still serve? And then I was like, my mind changed with the election, and I thought, well, you know, we can't have everybody being part of this one ideology. But he is 81, and is there a part of me that wants him to like relax and go to Sedona and just bird watch for the rest of his life? Sure. But I also think he would be deeply dissatisfied with that, and he feels a sense of purpose. And He's still working so hard. I can't believe his schedule. His doctors were angry that he was still trying to have the kind of schedule, like a normal schedule that he had had before he was diagnosed. And we had to have many conversations with him where I was like, you have to nap and you have to make an attempt to rest, which he has never done before. We traveled a lot, so we were normally like out of the country, and I mean, fun, happy, presents, swimming in the ocean. I mean, my dad used to read from the Book of Virtues on Christmas too. He loved that book, and he still does. Um, Normal, all-American, happy stuff. There's nothing that really sticks out as particularly unique. We all have to do it one at a time. That is one thing. You just want everyone opening it at the same time, and we have to watch and see what everyone opens. And of course, when you're young, you just want to rip everything apart. So that is true. He doesn't do any chores, and he doesn't wash the dishes, and he doesn't clean up after himself after he eats, and he like leaves stuff all over the place. And I don't know if that's something that happens when you're just like, you have people doing things for you all the time. He watches football and wants to get Mexican. It's pretty normal. Wants to get Mexican food. He likes grilling. Breeds. Again, nothing particularly noteworthy. But he was easier on me than he was on my brothers. My mom was more like the day-to-day, but if we did something really bad, my dad would get involved and call and ground us or whatever. But I don't know, he was a lot easier on me than he was on my brothers. Yeah, I do. I remember when my mom brought her home and she had a cleft palate and clearly needed surgery. And I remember thinking that I was excited. I had a new sister and we shared a room. And I remember thinking that it's weird like how children just sort of absorb things, that she was just my sister, that, oh, okay, I have a new sister and she's here. And that's a real testament to kids and how they just don't question things. And I remember her needing a lot of care because she was obviously unhealthy. When she came back, they had to feed her with a syringe because of her mouth. And yeah, I just remember it being as simple as you have a new sister and her name is Bridget and she's here. Because my mom brought her home and was like, you have a new daughter. And he was like, okay. I know, that's so their relationship, though. She'll make, like, big decisions and then be like, this is what's happening. He's like, okay. I don't watch it. It's so embarrassing. It was a nice experiment and, like, I've had, like, a weird career in lots of different networks and shows, and it was a docu-series. It wasn't a reality show because they didn't follow me around everywhere, but there was a theme for each show, and we interviewed different people, and it's a mess, and it's not good. But there is an episode where we went home that I think is probably good if I rewatched it. My brother was clearly, when he came back from his first deployment, clearly had seen some things and was working through it, and he drank a lot when he first came back. And, like I think a lot of soldiers do when they come back, but I don't remember him specifically talking about not being able to talk to my dad, but it's weird because we talk about things like that, but it's kind of very waspy that we also don't talk about things like that. So I don't really know. He got a little emotional on the show today. When we were hiking in Sedona, he would get emotional. We were talking about just father-daughter stuff and our relationship. But he does, and it's before he got sick, too. He would get emotional from time to time. He's not so cut off and so, stone that he doesn't emote from time to time. I mean, it's a lot more, tame than it was once upon a time, but, oh, yeah, he could get so angry at certain things, and, but it was much worse, I think, in politics than it ever was at home. I remember one time going to his office, and walking in and he was screaming at someone. He was like, what the fuck? And like screaming. And I was like, oh my God, Dad talks like that? That's so crazy. So he didn't talk like that around us, but he's much more calm than he once was. Like, my understanding was when he was much younger, he was like a terror. And my mother is a wonderful mother, and our personalities are very different because I'm so much like my dad. She's always like the nurturer and the sweet one and the person who would listen to us when we were really upset and did the day-to-day stuff. And she's a really, really good mom. I don't know how I didn't turn out like a drug addict psychopath given just the level of fame my dad has, because oftentimes that does happen with people. And she was like strict but loving and really tried to make up for the fact that my dad wasn't there during the week by like having fun dinners and taking us places and buying us a lot of dogs and animals around our house. And she's really an amazing partner to him. And I think that their relationship is sometimes misunderstood by people because of their age gap or because, I don't know, people really don't understand my mom the way they should. And she's such a rock right now. And I'm normally the strong one, and she's so strong right now and so just direct in the way that she's facing my father's cancer. And she has this like rock of Gibraltar strength that I never knew she had. And I'm the one that's fallen apart crying in interviews, and she's the one that's she's really keeping it together, and her strength has really, really been vital to me in the past few months. But she's a wonderful, I'm lucky, most people are lucky if they have a good relationship with one parent, but I don't feel the same sort of like deep kinship understanding that I do with my father, but I have a beautiful relationship with my mother too. It's so cliche, but like everything, hiking, cooking, just his wisdom of the world. And he has this capacity to make me feel safe in a world that's like seems to be spiraling out of control, that he understands it and is going to keep us safe. And I don't know what I'm going to do without that. And I don't know what America's going to do without that, like I said. But it's hard. I'm like trying to train myself to think of life without him, and it's a total exercise in futility. I might as well not try because it's not working. And I don't know. I'm trying to come to terms with it. I really am. But it's just not working. As a great American hero and a maverick politician, and I think that in the same way that people look at Teddy Roosevelt and Ted Kennedy and people that really made their mark in politics, I think people will reference him in the same way. I think in Arizona he will be an icon forever in the same way that Barry Goldwater is. He doesn't need to worry about his legacy. I don't know if he is, but he's solid. He's made his mark on America, and I take comfort in the fact that there's no way he will ever be forgotten, ever. I don't care, 500 years from now, people will still reference him. Maybe it won't be entirely, accurate to the truth. He'll probably rise to a whole different level than he's at now, but he's one of the great Americans ever. And I can't imagine living the kind of life he has. And he's just experienced everything. And I can't imagine facing mortality in the way that he is and being like, I've done everything that I can. I've done it all. And he really does feel that way. He feels like he keeps saying, what more could I have done? What more could I have done? And I look at all the things he's done in his life. So I think his legacy is very solid. He's a absolutely wonderful, dedicated father, and always has been, and cares about the dumb details of my life and the big things. And I don't know how he pulled it off because, again, just the kind of career he has and sort of living apart, I don't know how we ended up as close as we are, but we did. And there will be a giant hole in my heart whenever it is that he dies. I don't know when it is. And nothing will ever take its place. And I think people need to know that he's just it's really quite a feat to pull off to be such an incredible father at the same time as everything else. And he always made a point to include me and to teach me and my siblings. And it's the joy of my life. It's why I do what I do. It's like I would have never become a political commentator and do what I do without him. And he's just given me everything to lead this cool life that I get to lead.